Hello, I am Superintendent Roger Stock, and in this brief presentation, I will be sharing with you some background on our school district's budget. Our school district, much like a business or a family, has a budget that ensures we have the resources for the things we have to do and want to do on behalf of our students. Our budget also has a savings or reserve for unexpected events. For a family, these might be an unexpected car repair or medical bill. For a school district, it could be an emergency school repair or even a global pandemic. As a school district, we have some additional requirements we must adopt, a 3-year balanced budget, to ensure that the school district is in a strong financial position beyond the current year. Our budget must have a minimum reserve or savings account of 3% in each of those 3 years. And finally, our budget must follow all legal timelines for being approved and submitted to the Placer County Office of Education, along with other budget reporting deadlines. Here is an overview of the funding sources that make up our school district budget this year. We received $128 million in funding. Most of our funding, 83%, comes from the state based on our daily student attendance. The state also provides other funding which makes up 8% of our budget, such as through the state lottery and funding for mental health services. The federal government provides just 3% of our funding, and then 6% of our funding comes from other sources such as fees and donations. This slide shows how our school district is spending our funding this year. Most of our funding is spent on people, our dedicated employees who work hard to educate and serve our students. 49% of our expenses pay the salaries of our certificated employees, like our teachers, counselors, principals, and psychologists. 24% on the benefits including health and pension for all employees. 15% of our expenses are on the salaries of our classified employees, such as our custodians, bus drivers, instructional assistants, and clerical staff. 8% on services such as special education, mental health, professional development, utilities, and insurance. 3% on books and other supplies, 1% on equipment and facility improvements, for a total estimated expenditure of $131 million. As we begin to plan our school district's budget, we start with the governor's proposed state budget that was released in early January, since most of our funding comes from the state. As you may have heard, the governor's budget proposal provides for increasing levels of funding for public schools. Even with this increase in funding, our Rocklin Unified School District budget has a structural deficit and declining reserves. As you can see on the graph, our budget is projected to be balanced for the 2021-22 school year with a reserve, but in the next 2 years, we have a structural deficit of $9 million, which causes our reserves to decline. By the 2023-24 school year, the reserve is projected to be negative and well below the state minimum of 3%. Just like a family's budget is built on assumptions like how much income will be earned in the following year, how much to spend for housing, food, insurance, utilities, and hopefully saving for college and retirement, the school district has to build its budget on assumptions, including student enrollment and attendance, which is the biggest factor in determining our funding. Then we make assumptions about our expenses, such as staffing costs and increased operational costs for things like utilities, insurance, maintenance and repairs of our school facilities, and of course, instructional program costs. This slide shows that each year new funding is necessary just to cover the cost of growing mandated expenses. In the next 3 years, these costs are projected to be $8.7 million for just the 3 largest areas. Each year we have more students who have disabilities that qualify them for special education services. The cost of these mandated services increases each year as we serve these children. The state has required that school districts pay increasing amounts to fund the current and future pension obligations. There are 2 separate public pension systems that we pay into, PERS and STIRS. As you can see, these mandatory pension contributions increased significantly by $1.7 million alone in 2022-23. Like most public employers, school districts have salary schedules for its employees. These salary schedules provide increasing compensation annually for many of our employees based on their increased experience. These mandated increases in compensation are estimated to be $1.2 million each year. Our school district has faced and continues to face budget challenges. Over the last several years, the district has made a significant commitment to prioritize our spending on employee compensation to retain and attract the amazing people who deliver the high-quality education and services to our students. However, this commitment in our employees has required ongoing reductions in other areas of our school district budget since the 2018-19 school year. The COVID pandemic has brought increased costs for education and operations that have not fully been covered by state and federal funds. This year, during the pandemic, our school district had a significant loss of enrollment of 763 students. While we are hopeful that many of these students and families will return to the Rocklin Unified School District, we do not know how many will or when they will. As I mentioned earlier, we also have to address our budget structural deficit and diminishing budget reserves. These previous budget reductions, as directed by the Board of Trustees, have been kept as far from the classroom as possible. The largest group of these budget reductions were in the areas of classroom support. Some of these reductions were instructional coaches to help our teachers, assistant principals, technology replacement, and school site budget. The next largest area of reductions were at the operational and district level. Some of these include eliminating multiple district administrative and support positions, such as a Deputy Superintendent of Education Services, reducing facility maintenance, and school bus replacement. The smallest area of budget reductions were made in our classrooms. These included a work experience teacher, library aides at our high schools, and limiting our student summer school options. As the district plans the budget for the upcoming school year, we will continue to gather input from our stakeholders on our budget priorities. These include surveys, meetings, and through an upcoming online portal. We will continue to monitor new developments with the state and federal government, along with our enrollment for next year. We will be developing recommendations to the Board of Trustees for actions to meet all of the legal deadlines that begin in March all the way to the final adoption of the budget in June. But in order to maintain the necessary reserves, in the out years, we will likely need to consider reductions this year to avoid larger, even more painful cuts down the road. So we are asking for your help to understand the community's priorities in case reductions need to be made.